We have breaking news, Sean McDermott getting fired. You're in LA this weekend, though, and you get to watch the games there. How was that? How's the experience and the vibe just going out for some games in a different city?
It's incredible. We went to Santa Monica Pier, and there's a place called Scotty McLean's that's a little bit further past the pier. That's a Patriots bar, and that's where we watched the Bills game and watched the Bills collapse for another moment in history. And as a Patriots bar, everybody was rooting against the Bills. Everybody hated the Bills there. It was electric. And then the next day, we went out for the Rams game, and it was super rowdy. We were on the Caleb Williams side. We were rooting for the Bears, but there was a bunch of Rams fans, bunch of Bears fans. It was loud. Everyone was excited. It was super sick. And LA as a city is a great, great city. I had been there once before, but for like a day. I got to spend a few days in LA, and LA is one of the best cities we have to offer in America. It's incredible. So super historic, super culture-y. It was incredible.
Yeah, I mean, California definitely has the best weather. They have the best nature of any state. They have it all. It's a little bit expensive to be there, and with like all the homeless issues, like you wonder if you're really getting the bang for your buck sometimes. But glad that that was a good time because Bills fans did not have a good time at all this weekend. And that was the first game that happened, and we can get right to the chase. But I don't think I have ever seen a bigger crash out before from any single fan base, also the media too, just with the bias in this game because to start the playoffs, you had everyone hyping up the Buffalo Bills. They're like, oh, the Patriots have not beat a winning team, even though they beat the Buffalo Bills in Buffalo on Sunday Night Football. So everyone kind of wrote them off. And then Patrick Mahomes, no Lamar, no Joe Burrow. So it seemed like this was going to be the year that the Buffalo Bills had to get it done, especially since they had a top 5 offensive line in the league. They had the number 1 rusher in the league. I don't think Tom Brady ever had the number 1 running back. Can you ever remember that? I don't think even Peyton Manning had the number 1 rusher in the league. Patrick Mahomes has never had the number 1 rusher in the league either. The number 1 pass defense heading into it. I get you didn't have Jordan Poyer there either, but still have a lot of good players on that team. And this was hyped up as a team that's like, well, there's no like Burrow or Mahomes in his past. So if you're not going to get it done this year, when are you actually going to do it? And then we had said going into the playoffs that they had the most pressure on them of any team heading into the divisional round. And if they didn't get it done this year, Sean McDermott was going to get fired. And some people said, well, you could look at it this way. Well, Patrick Mahomes has been so great that the fact that they've been losing to the Chiefs every year is the only reason why Sean McDermott has kept his job because of how great Patrick Mahomes has been. So Mahomes has been keeping Sean McDermott employed maybe a couple years longer than he should have. I thought they should have fired him after, I don't know, you set a record for losing to the same team 4 straight times, or how about having the best defense in the league, giving up a 13-second play? I don't know. Those seem like valid times.
Yeah, there's just so much heartbreak that's happened for them. And going into the season and going into the postseason, this is their year, right? We have a pretty weak, you can kind of pick holes with all the teams. The Broncos with Bo Nix, is Bo Nix legitimate? The Steelers are old. The Texans have a bad offense. The Chargers are apart. The Patriots, it's only their second year with Drake May. And then Jacksonville had its issues too. But they beat the Jags. They go up against the Broncos. And honestly, like, this is the game they should have won. They had the lead in the fourth quarter. But the issue is mostly Josh Allen. Josh Allen was the reason to play. He played awful in this game. He threw 2 picks. He had 3 fumbles on top of that. Horrendous ball security in this game, which was something that you had alluded to at some point when we previewed this game, him getting a bit erratic. Their defense didn't help them very much either, putting up 33. But where do we even begin? Like, as far as failures goes, you had Josh Allen. At one point, you had Stephon Diggs. You have James Cook in this, who's a top rusher in the league. And your weapons are good enough. If you give this receiver core to Patrick Mahomes, he's winning the Super Bowl, or at least making the conference championship. You can't even make it to the conference championship the year that there's no Lamar, Joe Burrow, or Lamar Jackson. This is a complete failure, and Sean McDermott losing his job is about 2 years too late, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I thought he definitely should have been gone last year, especially after they couldn't beat the Kansas City Chiefs. Like, I get if they lose to another team and the Chiefs aren't there and you fire him, but this is a team that Sean McDermott is a defensive coach, right? They average 32 points a game given up to their opponent in playoff games that they lose. And then also, they've only beaten one team that has had a 13-win season, and that was last week versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. And if Cam Little didn't miss an extra point, or didn't miss the field goal at the end of the half and kind of played to his standard that he'd been playing all season long, then that could have been a different story all year too. But Josh Allen had actually been pretty good for all his turnovers, how erratic he's been in the regular season. He's been pretty good as far as the playoffs, as far as turnovers. He'd only had 6 before, and I believe 3 of those came in the game versus Skylar Thompson, where they were playing the Miami Dolphins, where he had 3 turnovers in that game. He had one against the Cincinnati Bengals, but overall, he hadn't been a turnover machine. In this game, he was told by their offensive coordinator at the end of the half, if nothing's there, go ahead and just throw the ball away and we'll live to fight another day. And this is the thing with this game where it really does come down to that ridiculous play at the end of the half where Josh Allen is running around like a chicken with his head cut off. He gets the ball punched out, and then you give Denver a free 3 points at the end of the half, and then Denver got 16 points off of his 4 turnovers in this game. They were able to generally capitalize on them, and then he really was the reason why they kind of just gave the ball away. You can argue about the last interception, whether it was an interception or not, but for me, this game really comes down to the turnover that he had at the end of the first half, where you just give them 3 points and then you allow them to go up 10, and that gives Denver a little bit of a cushion, and then they don't end up really scoring until the last drive where they're able to force it into overtime.
Yeah, that second half was just an immediate gut punch for them because they had just scored, they had just went up, they got the touchdown lead, and then that fumble with kicking that field goal at the very end, that was the difference between them being down by a score with getting the ball back to now they're down 2 scores. It was just terrible with what we saw there. But even despite that, Josh Allen prior to this hadn't thrown an interception for 2 straight playoff runs for them. He was keeping the ball clean. He had some really great playoff games in between there as well. But whether you want to blame the defense or I think the main focus should be on Josh Allen this game, you just can't lose to the Broncos. You had the lead. You had the lead with the fourth quarter. You're up 27-23. They score, you tie the game, you go into overtime, and then everyone wants to talk about this catch interception controversy, which we can talk about in a second here. But it shouldn't have even come down to that. You should have stopped the Broncos. Their offense sputtered in the second half. They only scored 6 points in the second half. Like, it shouldn't have come down to this. You shouldn't have been down 13 points in the second half. All you had to do was protect the ball, and this would be a totally different game. If there's no turnovers, they win this game by 2 scores otherwise.
Yeah, Bills fans being mad at the refs in this game, saying they get robbed, is pretty rich coming from them. I mean, you want to talk about them driving all the way down the field and then Josh Allen throwing an interception, and then it is Brandon Cooks in the air. He doesn't really come down with the ball, and then it ends up being an interception. And then they're arguing that was definitely a catch. And then you have people crying about that. And then you also have people complaining about the 2 pass interference calls. And then you also have another late game frustration penalty on Joey Bosa, which he's had a history of doing. When they lost to the Jaguars, when they came back 27-0, it was also a Joey Bosa roughing the passer call that got the Jaguars into field goal range that ended up helping them win that game. And then this game, if anyone has a right to complain about being robbed by the refs, it's the Denver Broncos. Why? Because they missed a blatant hold in the end zone that could have immediately ended the game in overtime that would have resulted in a safety. That should be the number one and only call that people are talking about in this game, because you have the audacity to be like, oh, well, that wasn't an interception. And then how can you call pass interference even though Tre'Davious White is literally grabbing his arm and not looking back for the ball before it even gets there? Like, Are you kidding me? You're the ones complaining when we would have a healthy Bo Nix going into the AFC Championship if they called that safety in the end zone. The refs gave you an opportunity. They gave you a golden opportunity to drive all the way down the field to give you a chance to score in overtime and win the game when all you needed was a field goal at that point. You'd already stopped Denver. You got the ball back, and then the refs decided to just gift you a drive and say, you know what? We're not going to end the game with the safety because we don't want to get that involved. And they gave Buffalo a chance. And then as soon as it was time to call a pass interference, that's what they did. So the fact that Buffalo and everyone is complaining that Buffalo got robbed by the refs in this game, it's like, no, Denver got robbed their quarterback playing in the AFC Championship game because they didn't call a safety in the end zone when that was clearly a hold. Like, if you don't see the screenshot of that and think that's a blatant hold, and you think the Bills are the one that got robbed in this game, like, the Bills didn't get robbed by the refs. The refs had no business not calling that play, and they literally gifted you a free drive down the field when they could have ended the game a couple minutes ago. And then you're like, oh, well, that wasn't an interception. Like, really? Josh Allen underthrew it, and then he also missed a wide open Dawson Knox that could have walked into the end zone in that game. How about that one? And you still think, oh, he doesn't have enough help. That's the issue when he missed multiple wide open receivers in this one.
Yeah, the lid of the story has got to be missed opportunities, whether he was missing throws, whether it was throwing it to the wrong team, whether it was just being frantic in the pocket. Like, Josh Allen is the reason why the Buffalo lost this game. You get rid of those turnovers, it's a much different game. But then also, like you mentioned with Bo Nix going down, Bo Nix goes down, like, you're celebrating because you just beat the Bills and it's a huge game. Nobody believed in Denver going into this game. Everyone was picking the Bills or rooting for the Bills. And then he gets injured on the knee down, which ultimately was what injured his ankle, I believe. And now he's not going to be playing in the playoffs. We're going to see Jared Stidham against the Patriots, and we all know what's going to probably happen in that game. We'll cover that later. But Denver fans should be robbed. They're 2 wins away from a Super Bowl at this point. Bo Nix, a guy that nobody is giving his flowers to, who, by the way, played a great game in this game.
Balled out.
279, 3 touchdowns. He played fantastic in this game. He went toe-to-toe with Josh Allen, and he was the better quarterback in this game. 1,000%. So if anybody got robbed, Bo Nix got robbed, and the Broncos fans got robbed.
Yeah, and I'd honestly say that Josh Allen has more help than Bo Nix. I think Josh Allen has a better run game. I think Josh Allen has better tight ends, and then what Khalil Shakur and Brandon Cooks have been doing has been on par with what Bo Nix has been getting. He had his best receiver, Pat Bryant, get injured early on in this game, and then he went out, and they had some other injury issues as far as wide receivers, and then Cortland Sutton took a little bit of time to get going. Marvin Mims got banged up in this game, so he was in and out of the lineup there, but Bo Nix was standing in the pocket. He only had one bad turnover, and this is his first playoff run too. I get the guy's like 30 years old because he played 11 years in college, but he had a great debut, and this is Denver's first win in the playoffs, I believe, since 2015 when they went to the Super Bowl and beat the Carolina Panthers there. So Bo Nix ended up going out there and played the better game, and I honestly think that Josh Allen with his legs, and then you factor in James Cook, Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox, who he missed on a wide open play, like, I think Josh Allen had almost as much help as Bo Nix did.
Yeah, I would agree there. Yeah, 100%. Receiver core, like, maybe Cortland Sutton's better than Khalil Shakur, but I feel like they're not far off from one another by any means. But Denver with Bo Nix, like, Bo Nix, he diced up the defense. He was pushing the ball down the field. And their run game, like, for the most part, like, Buffalo shut down the run, which was something that they haven't done very well all season. They had the 5th most rushing yards allowed all season. They held them to 70 rushing yards on 22 attempts. And their pass defense, this defense that everyone's anointed as like this great pass defense, I feel like Denver did a pretty good job pushing the ball down the field, getting those first downs. Bo Nix, when he needed to, used his legs. But again, like, this goes down to turnovers wise, Josh Allen playing awful at certain points. Like, if you limit the turnovers, they win this game very easily. And they were right down the line. They almost had another touchdown there, and that's all ruined because of it.